Iwo Jima, February 9 hours. Chester Nez crouches in a shell crater on Red Beach 1. Around him, the invasion of Iwo Jima is hell manifest. Marine bodies float in surf turned red. Artillery screams overhead. Mount Suribachi looms like a black tooth against gray sky, spitting fire from hundreds of hidden positions. Chester is 23 years old. He carries no rifle. His weapon is a 40-pound radio strapped to his back and a language the U.S. government tried to beat out of him as a child. His hands shake. Not from fear, though fear is there, constant, crushing, but from the weight of what he must do. 30,000 Marines are landing on this beach. Their survival depends on coordination. Artillery support, airstrikes, medical evacuations, and all of it flows through voices like his. An officer slides into the crater, uniform soaked with seawater and blood that might not be his own. "Get me fire support. Grid coordinates 4445-223. We're being massacred." Chester keys the mic. His fingers are steady now. This is what he was trained for. This is why he survived. He speaks, not English, Navajo. "Dibe yazi be yilthkin, tkin gliz yazi, neshchina etsotsa." The words flow with the confidence of a man speaking his native tongue. Each syllable carries centuries of survival. Each phrase coordinates the most sophisticated amphibious assault in human history. Across the volcanic ash and carnage, another Navajo voice responds. Fire mission confirmed. 90 seconds later, naval guns erupt. Shells the size of cars arc overhead and obliterate Japanese positions with surgical precision. The officer stares at Chester as if witnessing magic. What the hell language was that? Chester doesn't answer. He's already transmitting the next coordinates, already speaking the words that will keep Marines alive. He doesn't tell the officer about the boarding school, about the soap they shoved in his mouth when he was 6 years old for speaking this language, about the beatings, about the teachers who told him his tongue was savage, worthless, beneath contempt. Now that worthless language is winning a war. Same moment, 5,000 miles away, Tokyo Naval Intelligence Headquarters. Commander Goro Yahara removes his headphones with the slow, deliberate motion of a man accepting defeat. He has been listening to American transmissions for 33 months, recorded them, analyzed them, applied every cryptographic technique the Imperial Japanese Navy possesses: frequency analysis, pattern recognition, linguistic deconstruction, mathematical modeling. He has achieved nothing. Around him, the Tokyo Cryptographic Center, once the pride of Japanese intelligence, has become a monument to failure. Transcription attempts cover every wall. Thousands of hours of recording sit in filing cabinets, each one labeled untranslatable. The voices mock him, clear, confident, unencrypted, broadcasting openly as if Japan didn't exist. Yahara is 36 years old. He graduated top of his class at Tokyo Imperial University. He speaks 5 languages. He helped break the American diplomatic cipher before Pearl Harbor. His team read British naval codes during the fall of Singapore. But these voices, these syllables flowing with the rhythm of natural speech, they might as well be broadcasting from another dimension. A junior analyst enters, carrying the latest intercept from Iwo Jima, the largest American invasion yet. 30,000 Marines, unprecedented radio traffic, all of it in that damn language. "Sir, the pattern is the same. Heavy transmissions preceding the assault. Artillery coordination, air support requests, all unencrypted, all incomprehensible. Yahara stares at the transcript, pages of phonetic attempts that mean nothing. Turtle, whale, chicken hawk, words his translators have identified from missionary dictionaries. But strung together they produce gibberish. Unless they're not gibberish. Unless they're code words embedded within an already inaccessible language. How many casualties are we predicting for Iwo Jima? Yahara asks quietly. Command estimates is 20,000 Japanese defenders, all prepared to fight to the death. Yahara closes his eyes. 20,000 men who will die defending an island. And somewhere on that volcanic rock, American voices are coordinating their destruction in a language Japan cannot break. It's not just a tactical defeat. It's intellectual humiliation. Japan's finest minds rendered powerless by the voices of a people most Japanese have never heard of. Yahara returns to his recordings. He presses play. The voice speaks again, fluid, confident, carrying the weight of something he cannot name. It sounds like victory. Chester Nez is 11 years old when they take him. His parents stand in the doorway of their hogan, a traditional Navajo dwelling, watching as the government agents load their son into a truck. His mother weeps silently. His father's face is stone, but his hands shake. You'll learn to be civilized, the agent says. Learn English, learn useful skills, become American. What the agent doesn't say, you'll forget who you are. Fort Defiance. Indian boarding school is 6 hours from Chester's home, but it might as well be on another planet. The rules are immediate and absolute. No Navajo language, ever. No traditional clothing, no connection to home. Obedience, silence, assimilation. Chester's hair, which his mother had let grow long as tradition demanded, is cut brutally short. His traditional clothing is confiscated. He's given a number, 456. On his first day, Chester whispers a question to another Navajo child in their language. Haishu Hugan, where are the dormitories? A teacher hears. She's middle-aged, white, carrying a ruler like a weapon. Chester is marched to the front of the classroom. 20 children watch in silence. Speak English, the teacher demands. I don't English. When Chester doesn't respond, because he doesn't know enough English yet, the ruler cracks across his knuckles. Once, twice, 5 times. His hands swell. Bruises bloom purple-black. But the real punishment comes next. The teacher produces a bar of lye soap, harsh, chemical, burning, and forces it into Chester's mouth. You will not speak that savage language in my school. Chester gags. The soap burns his tongue, his throat. He vomits. The teacher makes him clean it up. That night, in the dormitory, Chester cries silently into his thin pillow. Around him, 30 other Navajo children do the same, but in the darkness, an older boy, maybe 14, whispers in Navajo, "Remember the words. They're trying to kill our language. Don't let them." Chester remembers. 13 years later, May 1942, Camp Pendleton, California. Chester Nez stands at attention with 28 other Navajo recruits. They are the first, the experiment, the weapon nobody expected. Marine Corps recruiters had arrived in Navajo territory with an unusual request. We need men who speak Navajo fluently. We need you for something that will help win the war. Many Navajo families were skeptical. The same government that had stolen their children for boarding schools now wanted their sons for war. But the recruiters were honest. Your language might save American lives. Your language might be the one thing Japan can't break. For Chester, The choice was immediate. The government had tried to destroy his language. Now they needed it. The irony was perfect. At Camp Pendleton, the 29 recruits face a challenge that seems impossible. Create a military code using a language that has no words for tanks, submarines, grenades, or bombers. A Marine Corps officer briefs them. You will develop a code that can be transmitted in combat, under fire, faster than any encryption machine. It must be unbreakable. It must be memorized. Nothing written down that the enemy can capture. You have 3 weeks. The recruits begin with what they know, their language, their culture, their way of seeing the world. Someone suggests animal names. The idea resonates immediately. A tank is slow, armored, carries its shell, chaidagahi, turtle. A submarine moves beneath water, metal body, besh-low, iron fish. A battleship is massive, rules the ocean, Lotso, whale. Aircraft need more specificity. A bomber dives from above, Ginny, chicken hawk. A fighter is swift, aggressive, Atsa, eagle. A torpedo plane skims water, Tas, chizzy, swallow. For the military alphabet, they go further. Each letter needs multiple Navajo words to prevent pattern recognition. A equals Wolachi, ant, or Belasana, apple, or Tsenil, axe. B equals Shush, bear, or Toish, jay, barrel, or Nahash, chid, badger. By the end of 3 weeks, they've created a complete encryption system. It exists nowhere on paper. It lives only in their minds, minds the U.S. government once tried to erase. Meanwhile, Tokyo, June 30. The first recordings arrive in wooden crates. 3 reels of magnetic tape. Voices intercepted from American forces at Midway. Commander Nakamura, head of Japan's Cryptographic Research Division, oversees the analysis personally. He expects this to be routine. Every Allied code has fallen to his team eventually. He presses play. The voice fills the analysis room. Fluid, confident, utterly alien. Nakamura's expression doesn't change, but his fingers drum the table until his team recognizes he's already troubled. For 6 weeks, the Tokyo team deploys every analytical weapon. Phonetic segmentation, identifying word boundaries. Result? Inconclusive. The language appears polysynthetic. Entire sentences compressed into single words. Frequency analysis. Every language has patterns. Common words appear repeatedly. Result: the frequency distribution matches nothing in their databases. Linguistic comparison. They test against hundreds of languages. Pacific Island dialects, Asian languages, European minority tongues. Result: no matches. Lieutenant Hiroshi Tanaka, the team's linguistics expert who studied at Cambridge, produces 40 pages of transcription attempts. Each one represents a different hypothesis about phonetic structure. None lead anywhere. It's not Indo-European, Tanaka announces during a briefing. The phonetics are wrong. The stress patterns don't match. The morphology is completely alien. Could it be indigenous American? Someone suggests. The room falls silent. Nobody in Tokyo has expertise in indigenous American languages. That's a blind spot nobody anticipated. Nakamura assigns researchers to university libraries. Find anything. Missionary translations, anthropological studies, grammar sketches, anything. The resources are limited, scattered, decades out of date. But there's something. Chester Nez lands on Guadalcanal with the 1st Marine Division in August 1942. It's his first combat deployment, the first real test. The jungle is hell, humidity, mosquitoes, snipers, disease, and somewhere out there, 20,000 Japanese soldiers determined to drive the Americans back into the sea. Chester moves with a rifle platoon, radio strapped to his back. His partner, another code talker named Roy Begay, stays within sight. If one dies, the other must continue transmitting. The code cannot be lost. They reach a forward position. American units are pinned down by Japanese artillery. Mortars are falling with devastating accuracy. Marines are dying. An officer grabs Chester. "Get me counter-battery fire, now!" Chester drops into cover, keys the mic, speaks in Navajo. The transmission takes 30 seconds. Grid coordinates, target description, urgency level, all encoded in metaphor, wrapped in a language that carries the weight of survival. Across the jungle, another code talker receives, translates, relays to artillery command. 3 minutes later, American guns erupt. Shells arc overhead and obliterate the Japanese position. The officer stares. "How did you do that so fast? Encryption machines take 10 minutes minimum." Chester smiles slightly. No machine, just talking. What Chester doesn't say, every word he just spoke would have gotten him beaten at boarding school. Every syllable was once considered worthless, savage, beneath contempt. Now it's saving lives. Tokyo, September 1940. Yahara's team intercepts the Guadalcanal transmissions, hours of recordings, clear patterns of coordination, artillery strikes, air support, troop movements. They can hear the Americans planning their attacks, can record every word, and understand nothing. The psychological impact is devastating. Japanese commanders who relied on signals intelligence for tactical advantage now operate blind. Officers who built careers on intercepting enemy communications find their expertise worthless. During a staff meeting, one intelligence officer slams his fist on the table. "We broke purple. We read British codes. How are we defeated by American tribesmen?" Nakamura's response is quiet, defeated. Because we're not facing a code. We're facing a culture, and you cannot decrypt culture. The words hang like a verdict. March 1943. A Japanese patrol, searching abandoned American positions on Guadalcanal, discovers a water-damaged filing cabinet. Most contents are destroyed, but one memo survives. It references special communicators and personnel of Native American descent. The document arrives in Tokyo 3 weeks later. Nakamura reads it twice. "Native American," he says slowly. "Indigenous North American personnel." The team erupts in activity. For months, they searched in wrong directions. Pacific languages, Asian dialects, European tongues. They never seriously considered indigenous American languages. Professor Ichiro Kawamoto, a linguist from Tokyo Imperial University who spent 2 years at Columbia before the war, is brought in as consultant. He arrives with a worn leather satchel filled with everything he could find: missionary translations, anthropological field notes, grammar sketches. "There are hundreds of Native American languages," Kawamoto explains. "Different families, completely unrelated. Some are as different from each other as Japanese is from English." They begin systematic elimination. Cherokee has written syllabary, extensive documentation. Sound patterns completely wrong. Choctaw, used briefly in World War I, eliminated. Comanche, Apache, Sioux, each compared against recordings, none match. Then Kawamoto obtains a grammar sketch of Navajo compiled by missionaries in the 1920s. Incomplete, focused on religious vocabulary, but something. He compares phonetic inventory against field recordings. The match isn't perfect, but it's closer than anything else. Navajo, Kawamoto says quietly. I think it's Navajo. How many speakers? Perhaps 50,000, almost all in Arizona and New Mexico. Never systematically written until missionaries arrived. Grammar extraordinarily complex. Verbs change form based on shape and consistency of objects. How many non-Navajos speak it fluently? Kawamoto hesitates. According to pre-war estimates, fewer than 30 people outside the tribe, mostly missionaries and anthropologists. Any Japanese? None. The implications settle like weight. The Americans weaponized a language Japan has no capacity to access. No speakers, no experts, no academic tradition. But the revelation brings new problems. Even with grammar sketches, the team still cannot translate transmissions. Words that should appear in religious texts are absent from military communications. Tanaka realizes the truth. They're not just speaking Navajo. They're using Navajo words to encode something else. A code within a code, elegant, devastating, unbreakable. November 1940, Tarawa. The battle for Tarawa Atoll is 76 hours of concentrated hell. 3,000 Marines assault a tiny island defended by 5,000 Japanese troops who have sworn to die rather than surrender. Chester Nez wades through chest-deep water as machine gun fire tears the surface into foam. Bodies float past him. The radio on his back feels like it weighs 1,000 pounds. He reaches the seawall, finds cover, keys the mic with hands that won't stop shaking. He speaks Navajo, artillery coordinates, medical evacuation requests, ammunition resupply. Every transmission is life or death. For 76 hours, Chester and 5 other code talkers transmit continuously. No sleep, no breaks, just voices speaking a language that refuses to be broken. When Tarawa finally falls, American casualties are staggering. Over 3,000 killed or wounded, but without the code talkers coordinating support under fire, the number would have been catastrophic. An officer approaches Chester after the battle. Son, I don't know what language that is, but you just saved a lot of lives. Chester nods, too exhausted to speak. His throat is raw from transmitting. His hands shake from adrenaline crash. That night, alone in a foxhole, Chester thinks about his mother, about the boarding school, about the teacher who shoved soap in his mouth for speaking Navajo. He wonders if she's still alive, if she knows that the language she tried to kill is now winning a war. He hopes she does. He hopes it haunts her. Tokyo. December 1940. Yahara sits alone at 3 a.m., surrounded by transcription attempts that have taken on the quality of obsession. He's been comparing Kawamoto's Navajo dictionary against intercepted transmissions for hours. The pattern that emerges is more disturbing than incomprehension. The words are wrong, not grammatically, contextually. Chedagahi, turtle, appears in transmissions about armored vehicles. Lotso, whale, shows up in naval contexts, but not referring to actual whales. Genie, chicken hawk, appears during air operations. The Americans aren't simply speaking Navajo, they're speaking in metaphor, in substitution, building a symbolic language on top of an already inaccessible foundation. Yahara circles another anomaly. The word for potato appeared before an American grenade attack. Coincidence or deliberate encoding? He's chasing shadows within shadows. And across the Pacific, Navajo voices keep speaking, keep winning. June and July are Saipan and Tinian. The Mariana Islands campaign represents the largest amphibious operations yet in the Pacific. 70,000 American troops assault heavily fortified islands. Code talkers are everywhere, at every level of command. Marine divisions, artillery battalions, air support coordination, medical evacuation, supply logistics. Chester Nez has been in combat for 24 months. He's seen things that will haunt him forever. But he keeps transmitting, keeps speaking the language that won't die. During the Tinian assault, Chester and his partner, Roy Begay, are attached to a forward reconnaissance unit. They're behind enemy lines, calling in airstrikes on Japanese positions. A Japanese patrol stumbles onto their position. Firefight erupts. Roy is hit, bullet through the shoulder. Chester drags him into cover, keys the mic with one hand while applying pressure to Roy's wound with the other. He speaks Navajo. Medical evacuation, urgent. Grid coordinates. 15 minutes later, a helicopter arrives under fire. Evacuates Roy, saves his life. That transmission, spoken in a language the U.S. government once tried to erase, just saved a Navajo life using American military resources. The irony is almost too perfect. February 19th, Iwo Jima, D-Day, Red Beach 1. We return to where we started. Chester Nez transmits continuously for 36 hours. No sleep, no breaks. His voice becomes hoarse, then raw, then painful. But he keeps speaking. Around him, the battle for Iwo Jima becomes the bloodiest in Marine Corps history. 26,000 American casualties, nearly all 21,000 Japanese defenders killed. Code talkers transmit over 800 messages in the first 48 hours. Not a single error, not a single message broken by Japanese intelligence. When the flag goes up on Mount Suribachi, the iconic photograph that will define the Pacific War, Chester Nez is in a foxhole half a mile away, calling in artillery coordinates. He sees the flag through smoke and volcanic ash. For a moment, he allows himself to feel something other than fear and exhaustion. Pride. Not just American pride. Navajo pride. The pride of a people who survived everything thrown at them and emerged unbroken. Tokyo, March 1944. Yahara stands before Admiral Kurita and senior naval staff. On the table lies 15 months of failure, stacks of transcription attempts, frequency charts, linguistic reports. 0 successful translations, Yahara reports. Not one message, not one tactical detail. Kurita's voice is quiet. Can we break it? Yahara chooses his words carefully. Admiral, to break this code, we would need Navajo speakers who understand military terminology, cryptographic principles, and the specific substitution system. Based on intelligence, there may be 6 such men alive. He pauses, and all of them serve the Americans. The room absorbs this. Complete intellectual surrender. Kurita stands, walks to the window. We believed America's strength was industry. Factories, aircraft carriers. We calculated tonnage and firepower. He turns. We didn't understand their true power was in voices we never heard, people we never counted, cultures we assumed were irrelevant. April through June 1940, Okinawa. The final battle. 82 days of hell, over 50,000 American casualties, 100,000 Japanese military dead, 150,000 Okinawan civilians killed. Code talkers transmit throughout. Chester Nez has been in combat for 3 years. He's 24 years old and feels 50. When Japan surrenders in August 1940, Chester is on Okinawa. He hears the news over the radio. The war is over. He should feel relief, something. Instead, he feels empty, hollow. 3 years of speaking voices under fire. 3 years of watching friends die. 3 years of carrying a language that saved thousands of lives. And now what? September 1945, Chester Nez returns to Arizona, to the reservation where he grew up, to the hogan where his parents raised him. His mother cries when she sees him. His father embraces him silently. That night, Chester tries to explain what happened, tries to describe how the language they punished him for speaking became the weapon that won the war. His father listens, then speaks quietly. The language survived because we refused to forget. Even when they beat us, even when they tried to shame us, we remembered. And now you use that memory to protect others. Chester wants to feel pride, but all he feels is exhaustion. The Marine Corps makes him sign documents. Everything about the code is classified, top secret. You cannot tell anyone, not family, not friends, not other veterans, what you did. The code might be needed again. So Chester returns to civilian life carrying a secret. He drives past Fort Defiance Indian Boarding School, still operating, still forcing children to forget their language, and says nothing. He watches other veterans receive parades, medals, recognition. Code talkers receive silence. For 23 years, the Navajo Code remains classified. Chester Nez cannot tell his own story, cannot explain to his children what their language accomplished, cannot receive recognition for saving thousands of American lives. The government that needed his voice has silenced him again. Tokyo, 1940 post-war interrogation. American intelligence officers interview Japanese cryptographers. The subject turns to the Navajo Code. Nakamura confesses without hesitation, "We never broke it. Not one message. Not even close." The American officer is surprised. "You broke purple before Pearl Harbor. You read British codes. Why not this?" Nakamura's response is philosophical. "Those were systems built by men like us, mathematicians, engineers. We understood the logic because we shared the framework. But the Navajo Code wasn't built by cryptographers. It was built by survival, by culture, by people who preserved their language against every effort to erase it." He pauses. "We were trying to break a machine. We were actually facing living memory." Years later, Yahara publishes memoirs containing a passage that will be quoted for generations. "We studied American industrial capacity. We calculated steel production, aircraft manufacturing. We believed we understood their strength, but we failed to see the power hidden in voices they had tried to silence. We assumed America's might came from factories. We didn't understand that its true weapon was forged in the survival of peoples who refused to disappear." The Navajo Code is finally declassified. 23 years after the war ended, Chester Nez can finally tell his story. He's 47 years old, half his life spent carrying this secret. He speaks at schools, museums, military ceremonies. He tells children about the boarding school, about the soap, about the beatings, about how the language they tried to kill won a war. Some listen. Many don't understand the irony. August 14th becomes National Navajo Code Talkers Day. Code talkers receive the Congressional Gold Medal. Chester Nez stands in the Capitol building, the same government that tried to erase his language now honoring it, and feels complicated emotions. Pride, yes, but also bitterness. Why did it take 55 years? Chester Nez dies at age 93. He's one of the last original 29. His obituary is carried by major newspapers. Finally, the recognition. But Chester isn't there to read it. The Navajo Code was never broken, not during World War II, not since. It remains the only military code in modern warfare never cracked by enemy intelligence, not because it was mathematically complex, but because it was real, living, breathing, carried in the minds of men who survived everything thrown at them. The U.S. government tried to erase the Navajo language through boarding schools, forced assimilation, systematic cultural destruction. They failed. And when they needed that language most, when the Pacific War hung in the balance, those same Navajo people who had every reason to refuse, chose to serve not because they loved the government, but because they loved their people, their language, their survival. Today, the Navajo Nation has over 300,000 members. The language is taught in schools, preserved, honored. Code talkers are remembered as heroes. But the deepest irony remains. The weapon that won the Pacific War was forged in oppression, in survival against systematic erasure, in voices that refused to be silenced. Japan's finest cryptographers were defeated not by American technology or military might, but by the resilience of a culture that would not die. And sometimes that's the most powerful weapon of all. The Navajo Code was never broken. It saved countless American lives and helped end World War II in the Pacific. Of the original 29 code talkers who created the code in 1942, the last died in 2014. Their voices carried victory. Their language refused to die. Ahehe, thank you.